Hello, and welcome back to the Wednesday Project. I'm Christina, and I'm glad you're here. Today, we're talking about forgiveness. And I want to say something right at the start. This is wide territory, wide enough that I cannot resolve it in 20 minutes, and I'm not going to try. What I can do is sit with you in it. I want to offer you a few things that I wish more people knew. Not as doctrine delivered from a distance, but as a fellow student of the Word, as someone who walks with people in the hardest times of their lives every single day, and as someone who is still navigating forgiveness in her own story. So, this isn't a sermon, it's a conversation. And I hope it finds you wherever you actually are with forgiveness. The first thing we're going to acknowledge is that the command is real. I want to start here because I think some people come into a conversation about forgiveness hoping someone is finally going to let them off the hook. I'm not that person. The command is real. Christ on the cross is the standard and the source. He said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That is the example being set for us. And the weight of that is not small. The Bible also tells us that the measure we use to forgive others is connected to how we ourselves receive forgiveness. That matters. I don't want to soften that. And hear this. Because of what Christ did on the cross, forgiveness is not impossible territory. There is nothing beyond His reach, even if it takes time for our hearts and our bodies to learn how to release it. Let that sit for just a second. That's not pressure to forgive. That is actually the most liberating truth available to us, because it means we are never without the capacity. We are never too broken to begin. The resource is not in us. It flows from Him, and He never runs out. But, and this is where I want to spend most of our time today, the command tells us what to do. It doesn't always tell us what it looks like while we're doing it. And that gap is where a lot of people are quietly suffering. So I want to name a few things that forgiveness is not, because I think confusion here is what makes the whole thing feel impossible. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. Forgiveness is something you can do alone, internally, before God. It does not require the other person's participation. It does not require their acknowledgement. It doesn't even require them to change. Reconciliation is different. Reconciliation requires two people who are willing. And that matters because some of you are in situations where the other person is not safe or not willing or not even aware of the harm they caused. Forgiving someone does not mean the relationship is restored. Those are two different things. And if a relationship hasn't been healed, that does not automatically mean you're failing at forgiveness. Next, forgiveness is not pretending it didn't happen. It happened. God knows it happened. You don't have to minimize what was done to you in order to forgive the person who did it. Those are not the same movement. And forgiveness is not the end of your feelings. You may forgive someone and still grieve, still feel anger, still feel loss. That is not unforgiveness returning. That is you being human inside of something that caused real harm. And here's something I want to say carefully, because I think it protects a lot of people. Sometimes the heart turns toward forgiveness before the nervous system catches up. You can make a genuine decision, a real, sincere decision before God, and still feel the ache of it in your body for longer than you expected. That is not evidence that forgiveness isn't happening. It's evidence that you are an embodied soul healing something real. The feelings are not a verdict on your sincerity. They're a sign that it mattered. And, lastly, forgiveness may not be a one-time event. You might forgive and then wake up the next day and need to forgive again. That doesn't mean the first time didn't count. It means you're human. And healing is not linear. And the Lord's mercies are new every morning. And so, sometimes, is the work of forgiveness. One more thing here. Everyone has a cloud. You remember that from a previous episode? Every person who has ever hurt you has context, a history, a nervous system shaped by things you cannot see. That doesn't excuse what they did, but compassion and curiosity, even a small amount, has a way of loosening the grip, of making a little space between you and the wound. We make the mistake of placing ourselves at the center of everything. And when we do, every hurt becomes a verdict of our worth. But most of the time, what was done to you was not really about you. That doesn't mean it didn't land on you. It just means you might not have to carry it as personally as you have been. Now, I want to give you a picture. Imagine that you're standing and there's a cross behind you. Everything that Christ did, his sacrifice, his love, the forgiveness he made available to you, it's all right there, arms open. And in front of you is someone who hurt you. And you're holding them. Not a loose grip, a death grip. Hands around what they did, what they said, who they were to you, holding them there between you and the cross. And before we go any further, I want to say something. If you're seeing yourself in this picture, I am not suggesting you are rebellious. I am not suggesting you are refusing God. Most of the time, we are not gripping because we're defiant. We are gripping because something in us is afraid. Afraid that if we let go, it means it didn't matter. Afraid that if we release it, we are saying it was okay. Afraid that if we stop holding it, no one will acknowledge what happened. But letting go was never the same thing as saying it didn't matter. And this is what I want you to see. You are not withholding forgiveness from them. You are withholding liberation for yourself. Because you cannot reach for the cross with your hands full. I sit with people every day who are white knuckling it, asking themselves, should I forgive? How do I know if I have really forgiven? Is it wrong that I still feel this way? What if I forgive and they do it again? And I watch that interrogation keep them from the very thing they are desperate for. Christ died for our sins. He paid a debt he didn't owe. He forgave from the cross while the nails were still in. And yet, we stand there holding this other person in a death grip, saying, Lord, look at what they did. I can't let go. And I wonder if part of what the Lord gently wants to say back is, I know, I see it, and I've already handled it. Can you let it come to me? Forgiveness isn't releasing them from accountability. God is not absent from justice. Forgiveness is releasing your grip so you can turn back toward Him. Now, this is the part where I want to give you something. A lot of the forgiveness teaching I've encountered has been heavy on the command and light on the compassion. Forgive or else. Forgive because you have to. Forgive because the Bible says so. And technically, those things are true. But they tend to make people grip harder because shame is not a very good loosener. What I've seen in the clinical room and in my own life is that grace is actually the on-ramp, not the exit. Think of forgiveness less like a destination you arrive at and more like a compass heading. A compass doesn't tell you you're there. It tells you the direction you're moving. And the most important thing is not that you've arrived, but that you're oriented. God knows the orientation of your heart. He is not waiting for you to have crossed a finish line before He receives you. He's looking at which way you're facing. And if your heart is turned towards forgiveness, even imperfectly, even slowly, even on a day when you have to choose it again because yesterday it didn't fully stick, He sees that. Sometimes we make a decision to forgive long before our bodies know it's safe to unclench around the wound. That doesn't mean forgiveness isn't happening. It means we are bringing our whole selves into alignment with what Christ has already invited us toward. And that is slow and embodied, and it is real work. My personal conviction, take it or leave it, I'm a fellow student, is that the sooner we can move toward forgiveness, the better. Not because the other person deserves it faster, but because unforgiveness is a weight you were never designed to carry. I've sat with people and watched unforgiveness harden something in them over years. A slow calcification. And I've also watched people decide, sometimes messily, sometimes through tears, and sometimes in a moment so quiet no one else saw it, to turn towards forgiveness. And something opened, not resolved, not all the way through, but open. Grace is what makes that possible. Grace toward yourself is What allows you to stop interrogating and start moving? So, if you've been hard on yourself about where you are in all of this, I want to offer you permission. You don't have to be all the way there. You just have to be willing to face it. Lord, I am deciding in my heart to forgive because you have forgiven me. Because of what Christ did on the cross, there's nothing beyond our reach, and I'm turning toward it. Even if I'm not all the way there yet, I'm turning. That is a compass heading, and He receives it. I told you at the beginning that I'm still navigating this in my own life, and that's true. I'm not going to tell you the story. It's still unfolding, but I will tell you this. There are people in my life that I've had to bring before God more than once, more than a handful of times, honestly. And there are moments where I've sat in my own therapy office or in my car or on my knees at my home and said, Lord, I thought I did this already. And what I'm learning is that sometimes forgiveness is less like a door you walk through and more like a path you keep choosing to stay on. I'm on the path. I'm not always at the front of it, but I'm on it. And that's what I'm asking of you today. Not arrival, not resolution, not even that your feelings have caught up with the decision to forgive. Just the path. Just the orientation. Just the turning towards. What I know is that forgiveness has never made things feel smaller for me. It has always made things feel more open, like there was more room for what actually matters. Forgiveness is liberation. It is connection with Christ. It is the slow, sometimes ongoing work of bringing our whole selves into agreement with what He has already invited us toward. And all of it is for His glory. Not ours, not mine, His. So wherever you are today, whether you're at the beginning of this or somewhere in the middle, or on your third or fourth round of forgiving the same thing, He sees the orientation of your heart. And that matters to Him. Until next Wednesday, be turning. Be open. Be His.